I didn't think it was a foul. I thought it was two great athletes that crashed into each other. That was not a guy punching somebody in the face or anything that, would be different.
I'm usually a pretty big Trump critic, but in this World Cup controversy he just waded into, I'm 100% with the president. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, your home for independent political analysis, commentary, and more. And today a little bit of World Cup drama. If you guys are new here or don't know me, I'm a huge soccer fan. I've been loving the World Cup. I've been following it very closely. Of course, rooting for our US men's national team, but also following some other teams. Like Argentina, because I'm a big Messi fan, and England to a lesser extent, because I know a lot of those players from the Premier League. But I raged out about it on Twitter at the time. My mind was blown by the horrible decision to give one of the US's main players, our striker, Balogun, a red card in their last match, which the US won anyway, which was kind of Herculean in effort. But then that meant he was going to miss our big match tonight against Belgium, which is we're in the round of 16. However, that was then changed. And the process by which it was changed has triggered tons of backlash, international outcry, and cries of corruption because President Trump got involved. And I will say I do think he's on the right side of this one. And we'll go through the details as well as his remarks that he made about it, which, because it's Trump, of course, had to be kind of crazy. But fundamentally, I do still think this is the right outcome and the right call, and I will walk through why. Here's the headline from the Wall Street Journal. FIFA sparks World Cup furor after Trump intervenes over U.S. striker's red card. The U.S. president called FIFA president Gianni Infantino, urging him to review Folarin Balogun's suspension for the U.S. team's round of 16 match against Belgium. More from the article here. The most stunning controversy of the 2026 World Cup erupted on Sunday after it emerged that President Trump personally intervened to have U.S. striker Folarin Balogun reinstated for the team's round of 16 game against Belgium following his red card in the previous round. Trump called FIFA President Gianni Infantino last week, urging him to review Balogun's automatic one-game suspension, according to people familiar with the matter. Trump told Infantino that everyone was telling him the decision was wrong, and Infantino promised to look into the matter. Later, the FIFA president called the U.S. president back and told him the suspension would be reversed and Balogun would be free to face Belgium on Monday, one of the people said. So we'll go through this in a little more detail, and there's a couple juicy details from this article that do help defend this. But basically what happened here is that he was given, in my view, a red card that was wrong. It wasn't a red card for me. It was an accidental stumble where he then stepped on an opponent. It wasn't actually serious foul play where you're purposefully endangering an opponent by making a reckless challenge. And if anything, Balogun was initially fouled by the other player, which caused him to stumble into the opponent. And at the time, watching it in real speed, the referee didn't even award a yellow card or anything. But then the slow motion replay, VAR as it's called in soccer, went and looked over it and advised the referee to come take a look and possibly give him a red card. But the problem with that, the key problem with that, is they broke their own rules about how they're supposed to follow the video replays, which replays they're supposed to use to analyze the decision. Here's the headline from ESPN. World Cup VAR review. Misapplied protocols leave Balogun wrongly red carded. So they broke their own rules in awarding him this bogus red card. And that has been laid out in that ESPN article. Multiple high-profile referees, like Mark Clattenburg, retired referees, have come out and said this was an egregiously wrong decision. But the U.S. was just going to have to deal with it, just going to have to accept it and lose their top scorer and one of their star players in this Belgium matchup. And then if the U.S. were to lose that matchup, which is much more likely without your star player, there's this massive cloud hanging over the World Cup, being robbed by this terrible refereeing that wasn't just a bad call, because bad calls happen, but they actually broke their own rules, their own protocols during it. The referees did. And so that's something that has to be addressed. but there was no built-in appeal process. So in the World Cup, for whatever reason, which is kind of bonkers, because in many competitions, there's a normal process to appeal red cards. So after all this outrage, and apparently, a call from President Trump, FIFA used another little-known rule to essentially waive the punishment, to suspend the actual punishment, rather than overturn the red card directly. But this is not actually totally unusual. Or from the article here, FIFA cited a little-known provision, known as Article 27, that allowed its disciplinary committee to use its discretion to suspend Balogun's ban for 12 months. Despite the opaque and unusual nature of the decision, the organization declined to elaborate further on its reasoning. The U.S. team, which was involved in the disciplinary review, according to a person familiar with the process, found out that Balogun would be eligible around 7:30 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday. So the one piece of this I will acknowledge that I do think is not very fair to Belgium is that they have limited time now to change their preparation, extremely limited, because the game is tonight, Monday night, and I will be tuning in and rooting for USA, and they would have planned for the US to have a very different lineup and different tactical approach with Balogun suspended. And so I don't really think it's entirely fair to Belgium. I'll gladly acknowledge to have this reversed at the last second, because they would have probably prepared differently or trained differently for slightly different tactics and lineups if they'd known Balogun was going to be eligible to play than when they're trying to guess what the US will do without him. So that is not ideal. But it is still better and more fair than the U.S. having to compete without their star player who was erroneously suspended by them breaking their own rules, the referees. So I still think that is, while neither outcome is ideal, the ideal would have been immediately, well in advance, days ago, so Belgium would have had more time overturning this decision. It's still the right call. It's still better than the alternative, which is totally screwing the U.S. out of a chance at the World Cup, or a fair chance with their best player, one of their best players of the tournament so far, because of the referees making a massive mistake and breaking their own rules to do it. And then, that's just the way things have to stay. It's actually not. And President Trump, as we'll hear from him, he just requested a review. He ultimately can't force and didn't force them to do this. But obviously, the specter of a president getting involved is going to lead people to complain that it's politicized. But if we're being honest, different governments are involved in all sorts of stuff with FIFA all the time. I mean, England had its leaders getting involved in a possible rescheduling of the timing of their match in Mexico. And we're kind of kidding ourselves if we're pretending this is some totally apolitical, totally not at all influence peddling subject to organization in FIFA. It's really not. And while I do acknowledge that this is an extremely unusual outcome and a very weird scenario, it's also not totally unprecedented. So here's more from the Wall Street Journal article. This isn't the first time that FIFA has deployed Article 27 to rescue a high-profile player from exclusion. Last November, superstar Cristiano Ronaldo received a red card in Portugal's penultimate qualifying match for deliberately elbowing an Irish player, which would have come with a 3-match suspension and cost him 2 matches of the World Cup group stage. But within days, FIFA's disciplinary committee adjusted his punishment to a 1-year probationary period. Now, Balogun has been also granted the same clemency. So they did this to make sure that Cristiano Ronaldo would be available to play. They did this exact same thing to make sure that Cristiano Ronaldo would be allowed to play at the beginning of this World Cup and that he wouldn't be suspended. So, and I don't know the details of that case. I don't even know whether that red card was correct or wrong. And in this case, so arguably this case with Balogun is more justified because it was a total bullshit red card given out in contravention of FIFA's own rules that its referees are supposed to follow, and it was waived, or effectively waived, using this process that obviously most people didn't know about, but it is in the rules. It's not as if they're just totally, making something up. It's not like they're breaking the rules and just because Trump called, they're totally rewriting everything. That's really not the case, though it is certainly still true that this is, a big change, a big mix up. I think it's fair to say, and slightly kind of tossing things up in the air in the last minute and making a change. But what's the alternative? The alternative is that the U.S. gets screwed, and I think this is the better of a terrible situation, the better outcome among obviously a situation where nothing is going to be perfectly fair and perfectly great. Now, President Trump decided to speak about this today, Monday morning, and did so with his usual eloquence. And yes, that is sarcasm. So I'm not sure that his commentary on all of this is making things better, but here's what he had to say. Let's watch.
But all I did, I asked for a review because I didn't think it was a foul. And, again, I'm good at this stuff. I didn't think it was a foul. I thought it was two great athletes that crashed into each other and got entangled. That was not a guy punching somebody in the face or anything that, would be different. And I think it's a terrible, if they wouldn't allow, a top player, maybe the best, maybe among the best players on the team to play, I think it would have had a big stain. And I related just that feel. I didn't tell him what to do. I can't tell him what to do. But and I don't believe he made the decision. I think it was a committee that made the decision. And they made the right decision because, number one, it wasn't a foul.
Okay, well, Trump's opinion about what is and isn't a foul is not actually very meaningful because he doesn't know anything about soccer. He even admitted he doesn't know what a red card is, I think, in the same clip. But I do agree with his point that everyone's saying like, oh, well, this last minute change calls this into disrepute and questions the integrity of FIFA and all of this. It's like it already would have been a massive scandal and cloud if you stole the U.S., fraudulently gave them a red card, and stole their best player and made him not available for this key round of 16 matchup, possibly ending the whole tournament for the United States team. There's already a cloud of scandal and of the integrity being called into question from that. So I think this does less, significantly less, because to call into disrepute the integrity of the competition, because at least this way you will have the best players from the United States and the best players of Belgium hash it out and may the best team win. So ultimately Belgium may still win. I think that's actually pretty likely. And that way there will really not be a pallor at all if Belgium win anyway. If the U.S., there will be some cloud, I guess, but it will just largely be because of Trump's involvement, I guess, and people obsessing over that when it's not even clear that his involvement necessarily, he like he said, he can't force FIFA to do this. Is he putting pressure? Sure. But that happens all the time. They're always under immense pressure. And this is ultimately still the right thing to do, even if Trump is involved. I think some of this is just knee-jerk reaction to anything Trump that you see in international media in particular, where he is despised. Anyway, more from the clip here.
And you want to see a game with your best players. You don't want to say,
you do.
How would you feel if I took, we take Messi out? Look, he ran into somebody. Or we took Ronaldo, you bunked into somebody, we're going to take you out of a game. He's great. Or Harry Kane, we're going to take you out of the game, Harry, because you happen to hit somebody a little bit harder than you can't do that. If you would have taken him out, I think it would have really stained this incredible champion. We got to
Well, so I'll just say that this is like sort of true, but sort of not. I mean, the punishment for a red card is missing the next match. So if it's a correct red card, then yes, the player can and should miss the next game. That is the penalty associated with a red card in soccer and always has been. So, or at least as far as I know. And that would be true for Messi or Ronaldo or anyone else or Harry Kane as well. You don't get to just have your best players because you should for the spectacle. But the main problem here is that the red card was erroneous and they broke their own rules to give it. So the same way in a court of law, right? If the police violate the law to collect evidence against you, that evidence gets thrown out. The referees broke their own protocols they are bound by in how to administer what replays they're supposed to look at when evaluating this kind of a foul. And therefore, the red card should not stand. Absolutely not. What I will say is that the added layer to this is also that Messi committed, and I love Messi, and I don't think this was intentional either, but he committed a blatant red card foul early in this tournament and then went on to score several goals when he should have already been sent off the pitch, and that wasn't punished. So there is often a very inconsistent level of refereeing when it comes to some of these star players. And Balogun, while he's one of the US's key players, isn't a world star. He's not, at the level of any of those players that Trump just mentioned. So that's another aspect of potential unfairness here. Anyway, let's listen to Trump. And of course, because he's Trump and he's just unhinged, he had to start rambling about the 2020 election and all this other bull that I wish he could have just kept out of it. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell you if Trump's doing something that I fundamentally think he's on the right side of. I'm still going to tell you that. I'm not going to be oh, just anything Trump bad. No, that's a form of derangement.
We got to have our best players, and Belgium's got a great team, by the way. We got to have our best players. And they have to have their best. And if we win or we lose, it's fair. Otherwise, let's say we lost him and we lose the game. It would be a terrible thing. So I think they made a really brilliant decision. I think the referee's call was horrible. And nobody talks about that. They talk about the red card like it's fine. Nobody talks. The referee's decision to red card. I didn't know what the hell a red card was.
Okay,
when I found out, I said, you got to be kidding. This guy just hands up, okay, your best player is not going to play next week or in the next game. I said, wow, that's a lot of power. That's terrible. But then I looked at his past, and it wasn't so great.
Trump is just so wild. I agree that it's not a red card and that it's a bad call, but you can't explain that you didn't know what a red card was and then expect anyone to take your opinion about the merits of that very seriously, Mr. President. Like I said, though, Trump's opinion is irrelevant. Many world-recognized referees, former referees and experts on the rules of the game don't think it was a red card. And even, like I said, ESPN reported extensively on how they broke their own protocols. So whether Trump's opinion about it is particularly knowledgeable or not, it's still actually the correct one. And I, for one, am glad to see the U.S. not be totally screwed over, not have their tournament ruined by a rogue referee and them breaking their own rules. And as far as I'm concerned, it's MAGA, baby. It's Trump 2028. It's Trump 2032. All right, I'm kidding. But I'm not going to suddenly just start loving Trump over this. But I will say, when you're right, you're right. And he's on the right side of this one. And fundamentally, this is a messy situation. It's certainly an imperfect outcome and not a perfect solution. But it is better than what was going to happen, which was the U.S. being totally screwed over. That's just my take. You guys will have to let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't yet and you want more independent political and cultural, I guess, at times, commentary. And with that, guys, we'll be back with more real soon.